Hello everybody and welcome back to Teacups and Toadstools. I know it's been a little bit of a long time since I've done kind of like a sit down video, chat with you guys, but I will be back hopefully in full throttle. The semester is starting, but I am finally sort of creating my own independent schedule. You know, it makes it a little easier to manage my time. I do have a mug. We have a mug today. I have my It Could Be Bunnies mug. This is from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. For those of you who know, I actually kind of look a little Buffy-ish. I got like the dark colors and I could definitely stake a vampire today. Today, I wanted to kind of check in and do like a little bit of a video about why I haven't posted a lot about reading on this channel in the last couple of months. And it's because I pretty much all of quarantine fell into a little bit of like a reading slump. Which really sucked because I wasn't really reading a lot and I had all the infinite time in the world to read and I wasn't reading for months. I mean, it was months that I didn't finish a book for so long. And I'll talk a little bit about how I got out of it and help you guys out if you are kind of going through the same thing and share what I kind of did to help myself get out of it. So I want to start this video off with talking a little bit about like the reading slump grief for somebody who is like a reader all the time and who reads a lot. It kind of feels like the 5 stages of grief to me. Like it's like there's denial where you're like, no, I'll pick up a book another day, like it's fine. It's fine. And then like weeks and months pass and then you just never read a book. And then there was also a little bit of like disappointment in myself, and it was just really hard mentally to deal with that. I've never really dealt with that before. I just felt like, you know, every time I would sit down to watch a TV show, I was like, man, I could be reading right now. You haven't read a book for months. And the longer it went, the more I got into that vicious cycle of just like not reading and guilting myself and then not reading more because I was like, well, I can't read now because like now I'm not worthy of it or whatever. That's kind of the cycle that I ended up going through, which just was really miserable. And it all kind of started when I was trying to read all 7 Harry Potter books in 7 days, and I was reading for absurd hours of the day. I should never do that because it totally burnt me out from reading for months. I totally blame that challenge. But you know, I feel like with like the 5 stages of grief, I kind of was able to hit a point of acceptance and then finally being able to do something about how I felt about my habits for the last couple months. And I understand it was like a crazy world time, and I know I'm not the only content creator on this platform who's kind of gone through a reading slump in this period of time, because there is a lot to be stressed about and a lot going on in the world, and people are handling it in different ways. And you know, giving up reading was something that I ended up doing during this period of time. So let's talk about tips for when you're in a reading slump and how to get out of it. It took me a while to find what worked for me because I would really try. I would maybe pick up a book, read it for 2 pages and get bored. So the first book that I read that I count like as on the other side of my reading slump was through a book club. And I run a book club for our Patreon for the podcast, and I was able to, because I had a deadline and people holding me accountable to read, the first book I finished was for that book club. And I kind of set that up knowing that it would motivate me to read, and also because I love chatting about books with other people, and when other people read what you're reading, it makes it so much more fun because then you can have a conversation and you're not just like, oh, I'm like in my lonely corner of the internet, like reading my books and talking about them, and who knows if anyone's gonna see them, but you know, anyway. Another thing that really helped for me was one of my family members sent me a couple of books during this period of time, and because I was getting books from him, I wanted to read them because he was like, Caroline, I think you'll really like this book. And my grandfather sent me one that was Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he read it in Spanish and I read it in English, and we were reading it in tandem so we could compare notes based on the different languages that, you know, that novel ends up being translated to, originally in Spanish and then to this English translation that I'm reading. And having like, again, like kind of a buddy to read something with, and like being sent a book and then being like, oh, I want to like read this now that my like grandfather thought of me and wanted me to read this. That was something that was really helpful for me, though I know that that is kind of out of your control. So yeah, I would just say generally, first tip, find friends to read with you. I think it's so much more fun to enjoy reading and books when you have like people to share the experiences with. Another thing that helped me a lot was rereading old books that I loved, like rereading old favorite books, because it kind of reminds you why you love to read. And experimenting also with like different genres of things that you might not be familiar with, because maybe the reason why you're not reading is because you're your interests are changing. Like you want to try something new and stray from what you usually read. You know, I was reading a lot of young readers books earlier this year, and I read a lot because I love reading young readers books. I love reviewing children's books because I think that they're just so magical and interesting. But it was getting to a point where I was like, okay, I really need something more like adult. I need to read a more adult book. One strain of thought is to read what's familiar, read books that you really enjoy, and that way you kind of fall in love with them again. And also experiment with different genres and see if it's maybe just you need something different than what you've been reading recently. And the last point, but I think, you know, one of the most important is to respect when you don't want to read, because the last thing you want is for reading to become a chore and to not be fun anymore, you know. And that's why, like, yeah, maybe I'll post a couple of videos on this channel about books I've liked or books I've read in the last month, but it's not going to be regular content for me because I don't want to pressure myself to have to read like 5,000 books in 1 month because I need to post it on YouTube and show how many books I've read. Like, that's stupid. Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm gonna read what I enjoy to read, and if I feel like it's a month where I want to read 10 books in the month, like, great, I'll do it, but I don't want to pressure myself and feel like I have to do that to make content, because there's so many other things I could be doing for content, and I want to keep reading as something that is fun still and special. I don't want it to be a chore, because schools work really hard to make it a chore for you to read when there's a book out there for everybody, and it might not be what you read in your English class. I think in the long term, to keep the longevity of the hobby, of what you enjoy, you do need to respect when you need a break from that hobby. I think that's normal for a lot of people, you know, with doing what they love. That's pretty much it. This is kind of a short little video. I have been working on a lot of like longer form stuff, so I hope you guys enjoy. I'm excited to share with you guys what I've been working on the last couple weeks. I'm really excited for the future of this channel. I also, I know there's like 200 of you, and I'm thankful for you guys being here. If you're interested, I have a Twitch channel with my podcast hosts that we share. I'll link that below if you're interested in checking that out. I hope you guys have a good day. I hope we're staying healthy, staying well. The book that got me out of the reading slump, which I read for my book club, was In the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, I think is how you pronounce his name. And it was so good. Like, that's all I have to say about it. It was just really fantastic, and I highly recommend. The other book that we read for book club this past month was The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which was a wild ride. If you have not read that book, I cannot recommend it enough. It is crazy. It is a psychological thriller that it's a kind of a long book. It's like 550 pages, but I was reading it for like 3 days straight. I finished it so fast. Like, anyway, make sure you subscribe to my channel, like this video, and comment below your favorite book that you have read during the summer. And I'm excited to hear about all the books you guys are reading and all that jazz. So I love you all very much, and have a good rest of your day. Bye! You may wonder where I am at this moment. I'm sitting on the floor of my room because I don't have a desk right now because we moved my old desk down to the living room, and my new desk hasn't come yet, and I'm really sad about it. So I have to put the camera on the desk though to film in front of my bookshelf, and it's not here yet, so we are on the floor.